little proviso that while we are cheerfully calling all vegans, the opinions and beliefs expressed by them do not always reflect our own.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Calling All Vegans. Remember us? I'm still your host, Sue Spar. I did want to wish my son Tyler a happy 30th birthday today. I had my little mummy cry this morning, so I barely look 30 myself, right? So how do I have a 30-year-old son? So we've got a new studio here at Wishbone Animal Rights Lab in downtown Toronto, and two new co-hosts. Our friend Labrosse has not been voted off the Calling All Vegans island. He's actually manning the helm behind the scenes with Mr. Ray Kowalchuk. So any tech mistakes, we all know who to blame. Just a quick mention that we are in need of volunteers for various roles here at the lab, so please let me know if you're interested. Kelly needs no introduction. She's an invaluable core team member of the Wishbone Project. She's also fed the bellies of most of the people in this room through her unique form of food activism as the Veganabler. And please also meet our other co-host, Vish. He is our ambassador of anti-speciesism, and he lives here at the lab. He loves posing for pictures with people, so please feel free. Vish reminds us all that common and seemingly benign actions like making a wish on a wishbone can have serious consequences for animals. He is also a symbol of resilience and perseverance because growing out of his broken bone from a seed planted in this most unlikely of places is bright green hope. Vish knows that people snapping wishbones one day could very well go vegan the next. So won't you please give a warm welcome to Kelly Kerr and Vish. Our first guest is equal parts feisty and fabulous, and I can't imagine her doing anything half-baked or halfway. We're going to be chatting with her about her activism, both grassroots and getting more politically involved, her struggles with health and how she's able to stop the progression of her autoimmune disease, and the cool and satisfying work she does as a personal trainer, holistic nutritionist, and vegan lifestyle coach. She holds a soft spot for animals, but is also a mixed martial artist champ, currently holding some undefeated titles. She is fluent in French, English, and Spanish. I barely have command of my own native tongue. So bienvenue, bienvenido, and welcome Michelle, the vegan boss, Labrosse, to Calling All Vegans show.
Thank you. Merci.
Now, you grew up in a small Quebec town. I'm a small town kid as well, only I'm from rural Ontario, home of animal ag, mink ranches, hunters. Anyone who hasn't been raised somewhere like that would have a tough time relating.
It's really hard when you come from like a 2,000 population town. You see things that you wouldn't see in the city, and you don't necessarily have the same type of opportunities either. So very much like you, like the moment I was graduated, I was out.
Yeah.
I went to Montreal though, instead of Toronto. Small town mindset. And even coming to the big city, people were like, oh, you're not from here. Yeah. And I was like, oh, why? Because you looked at me.
Yeah, you say hi to people,
Yeah.
and they're like, whoa.
Exactly, like you acknowledged me,
Exactly.
like you spoke to me, you said hi, you smiled to me, like most people are not used to that, right? So that was the biggest thing moving in the big city.
So Michelle, tell us your vegan backstory.
In 2011, I woke up one morning and I lost 50% of strength on my whole right side body. I fell out of bed and I had no idea what was going on. Like I was a mixed martial artist, as you mentioned, and I was a waitress, and everything I did was physical, right? So like, can you imagine like losing half the strength of your body? You're like, whoa, like what just happened?
Yeah.
So it was weeks of emergency, and eventually I was diagnosed with MS. And my neurologist told me right away, like they wanted me to inject myself for the rest of my life. My thought was, okay, this is going to be my last resort. Like I'm going to try anything and everything else before I start injecting myself forever, right? And so I was 24 years old. Like I'm 36 now, and that was over 12 years ago. And I mean, it was scary, right? When you're told something like that, but also you've lost like 50% of the function of your body. So like you're also kind of, it's a lot easier to be told what to do basically, because at this point you don't even have control over yourself, right? But luckily I was courageous, and I just decided to do my own research and watch tons of documentaries and find amazing things like the swank diet that helped me move away from eating animals.
Roa Swank.
Yeah, Dr. Roy Swank, exactly.
I just love the name.
So yeah, Dr. Roy Swank. And the reason he actually started this is because he had gotten himself in a wheelchair, right? And he had taken all of the modalities of regular medicine and still ended up in a wheelchair. So he wondered, like, what did I do wrong? So he started observing things and researching things differently and realized that there was a huge correlation with the consumption of meat and dairy, right, with autoimmune diseases. So he realized that most countries that were super prevalent in dairy and meat consumption were the ones that were higher in autoimmune. And so he started focusing more on eating plants, on reducing his saturated fats, and he got himself out of a wheelchair. He started running in marathons again, right? So that to me was like, okay, I can do something like that. And so I started by removing dairy first, which is
It's poison.
Oh, it's poison for your body.
Absolutely.
And I didn't even know, like, it's because of MS that I took dairy out, but I didn't know that I would have such amazing results from removing dairy, right? I thought I was doing it like for the long term for MS, really, because it is the same molecular structure. Dairy is very similar to your myelin sheath, which is what protects your central nervous system. And so I was drinking so much dairy then that my body stopped probably attacking the dairy and started attacking my myelin sheath. And that's how things kind of got out of hand, right? But I quit dairy, and like within weeks, my sinuses had cleared up, my skin had cleared up. Like, I felt so much better. And that was huge. And everything was a little bit of a process, but I started taking all animal products out. And then I started watching documentaries, because initially it was for health, right? And that's why I think that, like, we need to know our audience, because even if someone is attracted for it for health reasons initially, once they're there and once they feel and experience the changes, then it's easy to get them to look at what's happening to the animals, to get them to look at what's happening to the victims. If someone is not there yet, if they're already like harming beings, right, and they do it on a daily basis, if you're trying to get them to move away from harming them in one moment, like, it's going to be really hard. There's going to be like, they're not going to want to listen to your information. But if you show it to them from the angle or the perspective that would work best for them, then after that, once they've kind of bridged that gap, you can easily introduce what's the most important part, as we all know, right? The animals. And so sometimes, like, you get someone in by environment, you get someone in through health, through different ways, but at the end of the day, once they're there, then it's a lot easier to bridge that gap and show them the plight and what's happening to the animals. And then it's easier to just make sure they stay, right? They stay vegan
Absolutely.
forever. And so that's what happened to me at the end of the day. Like, it started for health, and then the more I saw the information, the more I saw what was happening to the animals, the more I thought to myself, I don't need to contribute to this. Like, I was already feeling so much better from not eating animals, and then I'm seeing what's happening to them, and I'm thinking, like, oh my God, I can't keep paying for this. Who would want to do that, right?
Oh, good, you're not a psychopath. Something I really find twisted is how every year A&W has the profits from their teen burger with MS. So, like,
Sue, I was studying at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, and it was on the radio, and it was like, A&W doing a promotion, buy one, get one free for the MS walk of blah, blah, blah. I lost my shit. Like, in my head, like, it was like, are you kidding me? Like, This is the reason people end up walking around with autoimmune disease, and now you're literally making a fundraiser.
Bit of a
trying
disconnect.
to feed
Yeah.
these people that,
Yeah, it's
like,
craziness.
beyond the people that are walking around sick, but the animals, like, what we're doing to
I
them.
know.
It's like a whole, like, it's a win-win by going vegan for everyone.
absolutely.
Doesn't McDonald's have something going on right now with a buy one, get one, and they're like planting a tree for every burger bought? Like,
Oh,
it's just
just-
like,
That's
insane.
greenwashing.
It's totally greenwashing. It's this attempt to care about your health or care about the environment. And
It's
they just care about
marketing.
profit.
Basically, they're just using people's stupidities against them.
Yeah.
I watched your video on your website, and I love the story you told about learning to be equanimous while at your spiritual retreat. Can you briefly explain a bit about what that is and how we can apply it to our vegan activism? Because I know, like, as ethical vegans, we all feel very strongly about what we're doing to animals, and we want to desperately like transfer that passion to people when we talk to them about veganism.
I know.
But that can easily become emotional.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is an
derail
emotional
pretty
topic.
easily, yes.
The story, it was so powerful.
So it all comes from Vipassana. So it's Vipassana. If you go to www.dhamma.org, so DHAMMA.org, O-R-G, you're literally going to find S.N. Goenka that's teaching his practice. And so this is like an ancient Indian technique. And the idea is to be accepting of reality as is. So it's to give you the power to master your own mind. And like one of the core principles is Anapana, and it's basically observing the space beneath your nostrils and above the upper lip. And you just, the thing is like our breath is automated, right? We're not supposed to be controlling our breath necessarily. Like imagine if we had to control our breath, we would be thinking about that all day long. Thankfully, it's automated. So when you do bring your attention though, you could feel different sensations. You could feel sensations from the air around. You can feel, and it'll depend, it'll vary for everyone, right? But the idea is just to observe. It's to teach yourself to become observant and to not react, to avoid reacting. And that's how it transgresses to animal rights activism, is that, like you said, like we hold things such as heart and we tend to react. Like when someone says something that we don't like, or when we see something we don't like, or when we react, right? Yeah. And we're usually, a lot of us are strong charactered. And usually as you become an activist, like you already have fire that's inside of you. With Vipassana, it's literally that, is you're just training your mind to remain equanimous. And equanimous just means like central, like neutral, objective, non-reactive, right? Like you don't want to react. And you could apply that in everyday life. Like the more you teach yourself that through meditation and you spend time just observing. And again, like I say, you could do that in a car, just don't close your eyes, you know? And that's exactly what happens with ARA, right? With animal rights activists. Although we want to change the world, although we want things to be different a lot faster than they're going, right?
For sure.
Unfortunately, it's like we can't just do that. Certain things are out of our control, right? And so the only thing we could do is do our best. We have to lead by example.
Yeah.
We have to be able to keep our calm. Like, no offense, but like no one looks at like a crazy vegan and is like, oh, I want to be like that person. You know, like no one's like, no pedestrians walking by and someone starts screaming at them and they think to themselves, oh, that's what I want to do. It's like, no, like if you have a legit conversation with them and you treat them as a human being, the human being that they are, which again are only a product of their environment, right? Those humans are only a product of their environment. Like they don't even, I like to think they're like children. They don't even know better. They're children that have been conditioned. We have to teach ourselves how to remain equanimous, how to just treat others the way we want to be treated, right? Because the same way we want animals to be treated, we have to treat other humans that way. Like that's the biggest thing. Sometimes as vegans, we really struggle. Like we have all this love for animals endlessly, and then when it comes to fellow humans, we treat them like shit, right? We're just like, oh no, like you're not allowed to do any mistakes ever.
And I hate them just inside.
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, that's one of the things that Vipassana though.
Weird smile on my face.
100%. And that's the thing, is you might have the judgment inside. That's nonviolent communication for you too.
Yeah.
You might have the judgment inside, but the judgment is it's just teaching you. It's teaching you what needs of yours are not being met. You're being judgmental of that person or of whatever they're doing or whatever because you have a need that's not being met in that moment. And we tend to want to externalize it and blame and criticize and everything's your fault. But at the end of the day, it's like, again, we're products of our environment. We'll even react the way that we were raised, right?
Yep.
And so unless we teach ourselves to break away from that barrier.
It's like a self-chatter or
yeah,
whatever.
we have destructive personalities, but that's our reptile brain as well. Like it's normal. We're supposed to respond that way because we're supposed to be able to like run if we're getting attacked by someone or something. Like back in the day, it was like, you know, like freaking lions and all this kind of stuff. Like we had to run, we had to defend ourselves. And now we don't live in the same kind of world, but we're overly stimulated.
Yes.
We're always in a flight or fight.
Yes.
So we're the only ones that have control. We're the only ones that could use techniques like Vipassana and help ourselves kind of regain calmness and equanimity. And when we bring that to ourselves, it makes a huge difference in our surroundings as well, right?
And I also think that it would greatly minimize, if not eliminate, burnout that we see so much in the vegan community. And we don't feel like we're making that progress, and then we just leave, and then sometimes we don't come back, right?
Yeah.
You know, so that's why it really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Equanimity.
Now, you are very active with groups such as Fur Free Toronto, and you were a big part of the Light Up the Cities campaign, which I would love to talk about, but I won't have time. But you are an ambassador and coach with the Plant-Based Treaty Initiative. Yes. And it's a political grassroots campaign designed to put food systems at the forefront of combating the climate crisis.
I love the plant-based treaty. I've been an activist for over 10 years now, and it's been one-on-one, right? It's grassroots. We're doing events all the time. We're doing all sorts of stuff, and we're outreaching to people more one-on-one, right? Whereas with the PBT, the idea is to reach people at an institutional level, is to change things systemically, right? And that makes a huge difference because over time, like I'm a little tired of doing like the one-on-one, and although I know that it's super effective, I know that every single people I reach out to is reaching out to other people as well, and I think that we need to address all branches of social movement, right? And doing grassroots activism is a huge part of it, but getting involved politically as well. So PBT is sort of on the range of like wanting to implement things and more plant-based foods in hospitals, in schools, in prisons, like anywhere that we're able to get, like in our city or in our municipalities, we're able to talk to our mayors, we're able to talk to our counselors, we're able to instill change from like the root, from like where people are making decisions, right? And so that, and again, if you think about it in hospitals, that's something that's close to my heart. Like with MS, like if you think about it, if I would have been hospitalized for a long time, like maybe back then I would have been able to eat things because I was still not really educated on that. But today, I would not be able to eat anything. I would not want to eat anything that's being served in a hospital. So like, can you imagine? Like that's where people are already sick. That's where people are already suffering. They've already driven themselves to the ground, and now they end up hospitalized, and then they're being fed shit food. They're being fed dead animals. They're being fed flesh. They're being fed secretions. They're being fed all of this stuff that keeps them sicker. And it doesn't make sense. So for me, it's like really close to my heart. Like I want us to, and schools, right? Like they've gotten dairy in schools. We have literally took dairy off the Canadian food guide, right? We've taken it off as a food group, and yet it's still subsidized and we still have it in schools, right? Like why? Because it's money, right? It's always about following the money, and it's really frustrating. But at the end of the day, we can change things from an institutional standpoint. And if enough people stand up and choose to take action and choose to speak to the people that can make decisions, because that's the biggest thing, right? As a grassroots activist being in the street, sometimes I'm meeting the right people, but for the most part, I'm meeting a whole bunch of random people that I could get to take action, send letters to their MPs or sign petitions or whatnot. But for the most part, if I decide to change a whole array of foods and I make a whole line of plant-based foods available in a hospital or in a school, or I remove dairy from the schools, which should have been done a long time ago. I don't like to use the word should, but like, come on. We need change, and we needed change like yesterday. So that's why for me, like the plant-based treaty is something that I could really, really be on board with. And I'm a proud ambassador. Like I just went a few days ago on Friday with Adrian. We went to this eco camp, and there was 70 plus kids, right? And we just gave them a whole presentation, and we showed them how to become a climate activist, because again, like we need to start hitting the roots, guys. Like we need to start getting kids. We need to start like talking to journalists that are coming out of schools. We need to like start addressing people before they're like in positions of power. That's kind of the idea with the PBT. And I got the town of Oakville to endorse the plant-based treaty as well. Mayor Burton, who endorsed on behalf of the town of Oakville. And again, I'm in talk with counselors and stuff like that, because I want to implement institutional change. Like enough is enough, right? Yeah. Like we need things like our planet is dying, all the animals on it are dying, people are walking around half dead. Like what are we waiting for? Do you know?
Our Gen Zers, they get it. Like my children, I had a lot of trouble with my son because he went to a school that was a sports school, and he had just went vegan, and we asked, well, what can he eat in his cafeteria? And
exactly.
Like French fries.
Yeah, nothing.
Like you're feeding a school that prides themselves on having
athleticism.
And you're feeding them French fries. And I said, who can I talk to about getting more plant-based options? They just contracted it out, so they just washed their hands of it. But my daughter, she was in OCAD. The student council did $2 all you can eat meals every Thursday, and it was all plant-based. Like they get it.
Well,
right?
that's really
You know,
cool.
so
We need to talk to these people.
yeah.
The more we get institutions on board, the more we actually lead the way, the more we show how it's done, people can keep modeling that everywhere, right? It becomes really simple after that to implement, but we have to pave the way.
Yep. So, Michelle, I Love Balance is the name of your company. Please tell us about it and the meaning behind the name.
For sure. So, with pleasure. Look, I even have this is actually my motto here: be kind, be strong, be true. Always be that best version of you, and let us help you along the way. So the idea why it's eye, as in third eye chakra, it's because your third eye chakra is your vision, right? It's being able to see, like, and for me, I don't want to create little soldiers. Maybe a little part of me it does. I just want an army of people that are working out with me, that are meditating. Like, we're meditating 21 minutes at the end of each session. Like, again, we're raising the frequencies, right? And we're visualizing. We're seeing the kind of world that we want to live in, right? And we're helping each other with our own energies. And again, like I said earlier, leading by example is so important. So not only eating the foods that we want, making sure that we're hydrating ourselves, making sure that we're moving our body, making sure that, you know, vitamin D is super important in Canada, like just key little things that we really have to do for ourselves to take care of ourselves, because by taking care of ourselves, we can then take care of others, right? If we don't take care of ourselves, like they even say it on a plane. They say it on a plane, put the mask on yourself before you put it on the person beside you. So I was raised with the thought, like, you are number one. And you are, in the sense that if you take care of yourself first, you can then easily take care of the rest of the world and the people around you, and you could lead by example, and you'll have the energy and the strength and the courage to do so, right?
You're hired. So we're planning on producing a fun little vegan dating show through the lab, and also having a couple of, you know, Vingles events, so vegan single mingles.
Ooh, that's really fun.
So I know how I feel about it, but what's your stance on swapping saliva with a non-vegan?
I would never.
Yeah.
So for all the vegan females out there, okay, and male too, like I'm saying females just because that's how, you know, I use it from my perspective, but please, if you're on dating sites or go to every possible dating site, create a profile. Be clear, right? You just want to talk, and you can even be, maybe if you're already in a relationship, like, I want to talk to other vegans. I want to make friends with vegans. Be really clear in your profile.
Yeah, my husband's here. I can't be making
you just want to make friends.
dating profiles.
You can say, I'm trying to recruit vegan activists. Do you know? Like, you could be really clear. A lot of the times people don't read the profile. So then you get a message, and then it's like, hey, they've already approached you. How much time do we spend going out on the streets trying to get people to stop for a freaking second, try to put cards in front of people? Now it's like they approach you. They literally came in and they're like, hey, how you doing? And then it's like, okay, well, first question, how do you feel about a vegan lifestyle? And then usually I'll know if they've read my profile or not, because if they're like oblivious and they're like, oh, like one of those or whatever, then I'll just go about showing them some documentaries, giving them information, educating them further, right? Like information that they wouldn't have had if they hadn't come across my profile and tried to, like, you know, date me. And so just know that you could use this tool everywhere. How many dating websites are out there? I even use Vegly as recruiting, to recruit activists. I've actually gotten activists that have come out to events from Vegly before. We need to recruit activists, you guys. Ow. We need to recruit them.
Now, I told Kelly that I had asked you to show us a move.
Right,
So
yes.
I think Kelly thought maybe I meant like a dance move or a yoga position, but
My background is mixed martial arts, right? We're gonna be showing an arm drag today. The easiest way is to learn how to manipulate someone else's body, right? So imagine you were coming towards me, okay? So if she's coming towards me, I need to move out of the way. I need to create space for her to get out. An arm drag is basically, there's different ways. I could grab her wrist and then grab her tricep and pull her out of the way so that I have her back, right? Or I could, depending on how she's coming, she could try and put her hand, for example, on my, and I'd have to deviate. I'd have to move her arm out of the way. So do that again. Yeah, you could, either one, it doesn't matter. Boom, move the arm out of the way, grab that tricep. We step in to pull the person, right? We grab their back. Now, there's different things we could do.
Can I punch him in the kidney
but
then?
But ideally, without doing the thing, you finish in a choke, in a rear naked choke, okay? And so that, you could put them to sleep, right? And then you call the cops. You put them to sleep first, then you'd call the cops. And or you could just move them out of the way and run. Get the heck out of there, right? Someone's charging you, like say
pushing,
you're coming.
that's probably the most common.
No,
get pushing.
that's it. And again,
right?
if you come
So-
to push me, then I can move your arms, right? Like it's
Yeah.
always about how are you directing the other person's body. If they're coming towards you, you need to move them out of the way, right? And so if she's coming towards me, if she goes to push, I could either use like arm drags are like easy for me because it's something I practiced a lot. But it's just about moving the arm out of the way, grabbing the tricep and guiding them to where you want them to go. Whether you grab their back or not, it's entirely up to you. I would definitely choke them out, but like at this point, if they like tried to attack me, I'm going to choke them out, okay? But a smart thing to do if you're not feeling confident to finish them in a rear naked choke, just push them out of the way and get the heck out. Especially if you're disrupting a store, move them out of the way and get out of the store so they don't lock you in. Yeah, so that's my demonstration.
I tried kicking you too, but
For anyone wanting to get animal and planet active or regain their health or improve their quality of life, where can they visit you online?
So of course they could go just to I Love Balance, right? EYELoveBalance.com. Or reach out to me on social media. I love to exchange social media with people, whether it's my business account, that's I am Michelle Labrosse, or my activist account, that's Vegan Boss Labrosse.
Michelle, thanks so much for joining us.
For sure. Thank you very much.
If only more people understood this.
I honestly have no words to describe what is currently happening in our world right now. There is such a climate crisis occurring that we absolutely need to address.
A code red for humanity.
We need to take matters in our own hands. Enough is enough. There is so much willful ignorance. Everyone just chooses to look the other way. They don't want to see the information because if they see the information, they know in their heart that they would change.
There's so many people dead.
We're gonna make them look. We're gonna take the hand off their eyes, we're gonna take their head out of the sand, and we're gonna force them to look at the information.
The report concludes there is still time to change.
We're gonna be doing this all over the city. This is absolutely going to help change our entire system. The more support that we get, the more we can light up the city, the more we can get our message across. We cannot do this without you. Be on board, join the team, help support in any way that you can. That's it. Keep going. Remember, use those legs, get nice and low in that squat. Side, lift that leg, reach. And gonna feel so different when I go and back down. We're trying not to slam those knees, so try to stay low. And then when you go back down, mellow. You're not trying to smack your back. Lean using those quads. Back forward. Do the same on the other side. Oh, which side want to go?
Okay, here I am. Welcome back. Hello.
Here's Charlie.
Oh, that's what we should ask. You might get your head beat in for that. Welcome back. So in doing my research and coming across people with the same name, I will just say that our next guest is not a Swiss Olympic water polo player, not an American behavioral neuroscientist, although he ain't no dummy, and not an Ohio State senator. But he is an activist, the author of 11 books. I got that off Goodreads, so I hope it's right.
It's not.
Okay. All right. How many?
I think it's like 6.
All right. The author of 6 books.
Maybe you're counting like the
Still very impressive.
Yeah.
Kindle version. And
Oh, okay.
Like only 6.
One of which we'll be discussing today. He's a producer and an Emmy-nominated writer for his work on Robot Chicken Star Wars. He has also written for HBO for the hit animated sitcom Forget About It, I've been dying to say it like that, for the wildly popular Robot Chicken, and he freelanced for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. With a PhD from Princeton University, 5 degrees in engineering and mathematics, and the author of Meat Logic, Why Do We Eat Animals? He's not just a funny and entertaining guy, but also a logical and serious guy. Yet the two manage not to nullify one another. Please welcome Charles Horn to the Calling All Vegans show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're delighted.
Charles, you're born and raised in Toronto, but you left for the bright lights of LA. When and how did that come about?
So I didn't leave for LA. I did a U of T degree here, and then I went to grad school in Princeton. After I got my PhD, I went to Silicon Valley. And so at that point, I was in California and closer to LA, and then I kind of just totally switched careers and said, oh, I'm just going to be a writer. So I moved to LA and didn't know anybody, got an agent, and did everything the hard way.
Our little Toronto guy doing it all from scratch, huh?
That's such a typical dream too, right?
Yeah,
You're just like,
you
I'm going
did
to go there and see if I make it.
Like growing up, it never seemed like it was a job, so I never thought about it before. So my background, initially is math and science, and definitely that was the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. It was just like, okay, you have a PhD, you're in Silicon Valley, and I think I want to be a writer. So, so I started to write, and I guess I convinced myself I was good at it.
And you've obviously been validated over and over, so you made the right decision.
Yeah. Now, so many of the world's most brilliant and logical people still consume animals and give the same dumb excuses as the rest of the unwashed masses for doing so. I have watched, almost cringing in embarrassment for them, as Sam Harris and Neil deGrasse Tyson have contorted their brains into pretzels with the mental gymnastics they do to rationalize this conduct. You yourself are a highly intelligent individual who lived many years as an ethical vegetarian before going fully plant-based. Can you give some insight into the whys of this sort of behavior?
Obviously, I don't think there's a good answer for that. I mean, especially Neil deGrasse Tyson. Oh my God.
Smarten up.
He's embarrassing himself at the level that he talks. Like, it's incredible. But, they don't want to feel bad about themselves, right? Because it's like, oh, am I doing a bad thing?
Yeah.
I think to a degree it's that. I made the connection with my dog growing up, and so I became a vegetarian back in high school. And I didn't know at that time about dairy and eggs. And also, it kind of felt like an unwinnable battle back then. It was just like you were just one in a million, but you're never going to win this fight. But I wanted out of it, so okay, I'm going vegetarian, and I don't want to think about it anymore. But like when social media came.
Yeah, I think that was the game changer for animal rights, for sure.
Yeah, because I started to get the sense that, okay, hey, there is starting to be some movement here. There's more people on board. There's starting to be more products. It's starting to become more normalized. I want to be part of this. It's probably about 11 years ago that I went vegan. So I wanted to go through all of the, the philosophy and the literature, and so that's actually kind of what started my book.
Don't worry, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We're going to get there.
So Charles, when going plant-based, people seem to worry that your eating is going to become very restricted. But it's actually the opposite, and a whole new culinary world opens up and you get very adventurous. And as the vegan enabler, that's what I help people do. Was it the same for you?
Yes, because it's kind of like a psychological thing. You have your foods that you're used to eating. Like, I grew up with this kind of food, so this is what I'm going to eat, and this is what I'm used to eating. And unless you were always an adventurous eater, you're going to put yourself in these boxes. And
are you kidding? Monday night was this, Tuesday night
was
that. Like, that's how I grew up.
Yeah, so I was like that too. With vegan, you're going against the grain in a big way. So once you make that psychological determination that you're going to do this, a lot of times you're able to get yourself out of those boxes and say, I am just going to become an adventurous eater now. I'm going to try all of these vegan foods, all these different cuisines that are out there, and I'm just going to try them. Some of them I might hate, some of them I might love, and you're going to find your new favorite foods. Your palate just becomes, it expands, it doesn't contract.
Yeah. But it can contract. You can eat that exact same way and have that menu of your 5 favorite things that you used to like and eat it vegan, right?
Yes. And to a large extent, I still do.
Yeah, for sure. So your book, Meat Logic, Why Do We Eat Animals, which can be signed out at our resource center. examines 31 common categories of justifications for eating animals and assesses whether they can pass the test of rational scrutiny. What is your inspiration for writing this book?
So there were kind of two things that kind of came together. One was we're often told, oh, you're just being emotional about the animals, and you're not being rational. And so I ended up going through the literature, and I started to see that it was a done deal. I mean, not everybody agrees, but it was clear if you're a rational person, it's a done deal. But the material is in different books, and some of them are academic books, and it's not always for the layperson. And so I wanted to condense and collect all of that. But then the other part was I wanted to go through all of the rationalizations, and that came from just watching everybody fight on Facebook. So it was like I was seeing the same arguments all the time, and they would end the same way or reach an impasse in the same way, and people wouldn't learn. Let's just collect it all together and put it all in one place. So those were the two things that kind of came together for the book.
Yeah, Meat Logic is kind of like a handbook of 130 pages of, I'll say, well-crafted, moral, logical comebacks to many of the notions and arguments that carnists typically fire at us, vegans. If you could do it all over again, is there anything you would add or change, kind of to update?
Yeah, there are a couple of new woke kind of rationalizations. So I would add a chapter for that. In a sense, the progressive thoughts that they are putting forward and then just like throwing them away when it comes to animals. Like if you just followed exactly the thoughts that you were saying earlier, you would not be saying this.
Yeah, when all the social justice movements are sitting around the table and they order lunch, they order chicken wings, right?
Right. What I'm saying is that they're saying you shouldn't care about veganism because there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, or because of some indigenous culture or BIPOC food deserts or whatever. And it's completely backwards kind of thinking.
No movement is perfect anyway. They have their limitations as well.
Yes, and you could use the same type of thinking and downplay and totally downplay feminism. You can't be a complete feminist in some parts of the world. They'd actually kill you if you tried to be. So we should not be feminist here. You know, it's the stupidest arguments, and but they make them. Yeah. So I probably would add a chapter for that. But
it's deflection, right? They hide behind exemptions, if you want to call it, of why someone might not be able to be fully plant-based, so that they don't have to self-examine.
Right, because the real justice is if there's something in the world that's stopping you from being in a position of justice, you change the positions, you change the conditions on the ground so that it becomes improved, so that you can reach a position of justice. And you don't say...
Rather than use it as an excuse.
Rather use it as an excuse to say, oh, we should never go for justice because you can't do because somebody in some far-off land can't be vegan right now. You know, it's just like total opposite of how you should think about justice, but people do it. And that's, you know, unfortunately, it's because they haven't been able to get there themselves and they don't want to feel bad about themselves. Yeah. And so then they have to fight back and say, oh, no, we shouldn't be vegan, you know.
Right.
But really, they should say, you are totally right. I haven't been able to be as good of a person, and I'll work on that or whatever, however long it'll take me. And I'll work on the conditions of society so that it will make it easier for everybody. You know, because if it's
so it's accessible for all.
So it's accessible. Like, let's say I find it hard because the people that I'm going out with, they don't go to the vegan restaurant, and then I find it hard with what to eat and whatever. So let's all work on making vegan food accessible everywhere, and then it's easier for everybody. So that's the way you should be thinking about it, of like improving the conditions on the ground for everybody, and admitting to yourself, okay, I haven't reached where I should be yet, but I'm not a perfect person and I'll continue to work on it, rather than fight it and say, you shouldn't be this and this is bad. And so it's just backwards. But unfortunately, right now, that's where we're still at sometimes with the vegan movement.
Yeah. So what is it about your books that make them like palatable for vegans and non-vegans?
Only one of my books is a vegan book, the rest are comedy. But originally when I started to write the book, I tried to kind of do it more comedic, but I quickly realized that it started to feel more combative. So I realized that actually this book can't be comedic. I really wrote it in a very non-combative, logical, rational way. Just let's think about these things and show you where the thought process is going wrong, showing inconsistencies. So I think it's very palatable for everyone. I wrote it kind of for vegans who should know how to counter all the arguments, but also specifically for non-vegans, put their thinking to the test, right? My hope and goal is that by the end of the book, it's clear that you can't consider yourself a rational person on this subject if you are anti-vegan, anti-animal rights.
A common rationalization that we all hear humans use to bolster their argument for eating animals is that it's natural, or it's always been done this way, or it's normal, even though normalcy is like a social construct. When you consider that over the eons, cultural values and relative norms have embraced slavery and infanticide, etc. Much like the argument that something is legal doesn't make it moral. I heard you make a great case for this by saying that when someone argues that humans are biologically omnivores and it's therefore okay for us to eat animals, that makes as much moral sense as having the ability to make a fist and justify that it's okay to go around punching people. What's the most ridiculous rationalization you've heard for people to eat animals? I know there's quite a few to choose from.
Yeah, there are. That was a post that I wrote called 6 Surefire Ways to Lose an Argument with a Vegan.
Yeah, I would encourage people to read that because it's excellent.
I really love that article. It's kind of like written in the style of like Cracked magazines, a lot of pop culture references.
Yeah.
Look that up and share it. The craziest rationalization, someone was making the argument, we shouldn't stop eating meat because if we all do, then we might over time lose the ability to eat meat. And then in some distant future, we might have a catastrophe where you needed to eat meat and you couldn't eat meat anymore.
Oh, for God's sake.
And it was like, oh my God. I knew it had to be in the book.
Dystopia is here now for animals. You're worried about that distant dystopia,
it actually
dude.
took me a while to figure out the kind of like the best response, because it was like, it's just like, how do you respond to this? This is like just crazy. You've got to buy into all these things that are probably not true, but let's even hypothetically assume it was the case. Why are you focusing on this one crazy scenario that is totally unlikely for some far distant future that would only affect a subgroup of people who didn't have access to plant food at that specific time? It wouldn't happen to everybody. And instead not focusing on the near-term ones that are happening right now, climate change. And I point to both climate change and pandemics. And at the time I wrote this, we didn't have the pandemic. Yeah. So it was like...
How prescient.
Yeah, I was writing it because that was a possibility, but obviously we didn't see it coming. Not only have they tried to turn this into no longer a moral dilemma, they've turned it into something positive. It's like, eat your meat, boys and girls.
Yeah, thanks for that public service announcement, friend. Yeah.
We can avoid this future catastrophe,
Making it all about humans again.
They need to redo Andrew's Dream Electric Sheep because animals are so there's just no animals left. Few ones, rich people own them, otherwise they're all robots, right?
Right.
So I like how you think there's this future where we still have animals, an abundance of animals on this planet, right? It's not going to happen.
No.
At the rate we're going, yes.
So I understand you're working on doing a stand-up comedy act. Do you have a vegan joke you'd care to try out, or any projects or show ideas that you're working on?
So a vegan walks into a bar and...
No, so I'm mostly a writer, so I never had desire so much to perform. But yeah, I did recently start to think, can I get over my stage fright and start to do like stand-up? I went to an open mic and I did. And so I did some vegan material and some non-vegan material, and they both went over well, so I'll try it again.
Charles Horn will be appearing live at Wishbone Animal Rights Lab.
Nobody knows who I am, so I'm starting off doing the more self-deprecating stuff, I'll wait for the more biting. But the first joke getting into it was, it's like very stressful to be doing stand-up comedy as a vegan because there's so much pressure because I can't do too well. Because if I do, it means that I killed. Or if I suck, then I bombed. So you gotta, it's just a tightrope.
Yeah, and I think humor is extremely powerful, and it is really that spoonful of sugar that helps the hard truths like vegan medicine much easier to swallow, helps lower people's defenses, and how can you hate somebody who's making you laugh? But
yeah, that's how culture moves. It's by
Yeah.
entertainment. It's pop culture is culture.
yeah. Well, it's good to
currently
be
something-
relatable and
Yeah.
to resonate, and
It's something that can spread,
Yeah.
and it's more palatable. And entertainment has worked that way in the past for other movements. Like you can point to the Cosby Show. You
Yep.
can point to Will and Grace, milestone moments
Yeah.
of movements getting
Yeah.
acceptance.
that's
And
right. Just everyday,
yeah.
the life and humor, and they're
Exactly.
just the same as us. And,
Yeah, they're just the same as us. That's
Mm-hmm.
like so important. It's not that you have to become like this crazy vegan character. You're just like us, but vegan.
that's right.
So then it's somebody I can relate to, and then I could see myself
And they
being
like it.
that
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm rooting for that person, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they should not be perfect because
No.
we hate that in characters.
Oh God. Yeah.
We want them to have quirks
and we already
foibles.
have that high and mighty
Yeah.
attribution to us.
So they should have their own quirks and
Yeah.
foibles and people that we
Right.
can laugh at, but at the same time, we see ourselves in them,
Yeah.
and so we root for them.
This is the last question, and it's just a quickie. Humans wake up every morning kind of hell-bent on destroying themselves, right? So what's going to extinct us? Is it going to be climate change? Is it going to be a zoonotic disease? Or is it going to be antibiotic resistance?
It depends if you're asking of something that's going to like get rid of most of us or get rid of all of us.
Everybody but the vegans, how's that?
We'll get caught up in it regardless, even though we didn't cause it. But,
Yep.
the antibiotic resistance, that will just kill a lot of people. It won't make us go extinct. The pandemic has a possibility if it's
Nice little avian flu.
if it's like the 50% avian flu
Yeah.
that just totally destroys society and dystopian future
Yeah.
situations. And then the one that could possibly extinct everybody would be the climate change if like we went to the worst case scenario and then human life was not possible to exist.
We no longer have.
Okay,
Okay.
but-
Oh, what a cheery little note to end on. Anyway.
So with that, you can follow Charles on Twitter at Charles Horn, and to pick up his book, Meat Logic. It's available on Amazon as well as his other publications.
Yeah,
and I
we've got
encourage you
3
to
of them
read
here.
his 6 surefire ways to lose an argument with a vegan at charleshorn.medium.com. Charles, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks so
I
much.
had so many more questions.
I know.
I'd like to share a revelation that I've had during my time here. It came to me when I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply, and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague, and we are a cure.
Well, whenever someone brings a dog, an infant, or food to the lab, they somehow instantly become the favorite person in the room. And here with her vibrant va-va-va-boom vittles, our final guest definitely won't be the exception. No stranger to standing up for animals, she traded in a street corner, her anonymous mask and truce sign, although I know you're back at it again in Hamilton, for a kitchen, apron, and ladle. And we all know that serving delectable plant-based food is a very effective form of activism. She says she's a food fighter, not a foo fighter. From straight out of Hamilton, please welcome Kristy Van Beek and her soup to the Calling All Vegans show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me,
Oh,
Sue.
thank you. How long has it been since
It's
I
been a
said
minute.
it's been years?
I think I was still living in Toronto at the time.
It's been years.
Yeah. Here we are.
No, Kristy, were you a little girl who loved animals?
Yeah, I always loved animals. We had kitty cats growing up. We had 3 cats in our house. I actually was a little bit scared of dogs as a kid because I witnessed my brother get attacked by a dog, unfortunately. But I eventually adopted a doggy, became a dog lover, and now I have 2 dogs. The second one is a rescue. Yeah, they're the light of my life. I absolutely adore them.
Most animal activists participate in different forms of activism. I think I'm going to know the answer to this, but what's your favorite and why?
Ooh, my favorite now, today, is creating what I call baby vegans right at my business as I'm serving them up food and having really integral health conversations about how we can change their life with their forks. But I also love getting out on the street and doing some Anonymous for the Voiceless. I like to speak to other non-vegan business owners and encourage them to put vegan items on their menu and have conversations about the small changes that they can make to bring more vegans into their restaurant.
You spent years in the beauty industry teaching people how to maintain a healthy, youthful appearance. And there are so many factors that counteract the process of aging. What else can we do to keep ourselves looking all dewy and youthful on the inside and out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're absolutely right. I am a cellular and molecular biologist by training, and I spent 15 years of my career in the beauty industry educating people on living long and healthy, beautiful lives and preventing aging and even reversing aging. And so the top skincare tips I can offer from my experience in the dermatology world are to wear sunscreen, although I realize that can be controversial with some folks. I recommend a mineral-based sunscreen. Use vitamin C in the morning when you would drink your orange juice, and use retinol at night when you would rest. So retinol is a form of vitamin A, and it helps to stimulate brand new cell development, and it keeps your skin turning over and beautiful and fresh and glowing.
John's not going to recognize me one morning, huh? Who's this 12-year-old kid? You're in my bed.
But as vegans too, we're eating incredible plant-based foods that give us these nutrients from the inside. And I truly have seen changes in my skin since going vegan. I know that ditching dairy, I saw a lot of breakouts going away. And I think, now what I see myself doing is I'm working on anti-aging from the inside out, and as vegans, we're truly living longer, healthier lives.
Yeah, we got to look good for a lot
eat.
Longer than the rest of them, huh?
Absolutely.
Now, food, it can harm us or it can heal us. You face some very serious health issues. You were given frightening diagnosis and perhaps an equally terrifying prognosis. Through this experience and transforming your body in other ways, you have become a firm believer in and a proponent of the healing power of a whole food plant-based diet. Could you please tell us your story and expand on how the vitamins and minerals found in such a diet halt the damage from the everyday assaults and support our body's natural ability to heal itself?
Let's back up to 2015 when I actually first went vegan. So it was a day in July, it was pouring rain, and I stumbled upon a documentary called Forks Over Knives. At that time, I weighed 255 pounds. I had high cholesterol, high blood pressure for a 32-year-old, and I was on the verge of a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. I watched that documentary and I saw them list all of the same medical conditions that my granny and my grandmother had, who both had heart attacks in their 50s. And I could see very suddenly that that was going to be my future if I didn't make a quick change. And so I went vegan at that time, and I was actually vegan for 2 years before I learned that I had a brain tumor. And so in 2017, when I was 34, I found out that I have a brain tumor that has an average 5-year survival rate. Great news, that was 5.5 years ago.
Oh my God.
Spoiler alert.
Ooh, that's very good.
So it was very, very scary. My tumor is wrapped around my interior carotid artery. I had 2 prominent neurosurgeons tell me it's like literally the worst place to get a brain tumor. Not that anybody wants one, like,
No.
don't recommend it. 0 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's considered absolutely inoperable. And that left me feeling very hopeless and scared for a long time. I had the privilege, because I worked for a pretty good company at the time, of going off on a paid sick leave. And I was off on sick leave for about 3 years. And during that time, I did a ton of research. I read every book I could. I read every paper. I went on to Up to Date, which is just for medical professionals, to find out what is the most up-to-date, accurate clinical information. I was listening to podcasts, and you name it, I was reading it and taking it all in. And I landed on a whole foods plant-based diet. So I went from being vegan, but still there's a lot of processed foods that are vegan. I mean, Oreos are vegan. We all know that. Ruffles chips, you can get vegan chips. You can get all kinds of vegan goodies.
Yeah.
But
You're making me hungry.
really moving towards using food as medicine by eating whole foods. So predominantly vegetables and fruit, whole grains, beans, lentils, nuts, and seeds, and really making that, 95% of my diet.
Yeah. Obviously, it's working.
Yeah, I go for MRIs every 6 months, and my tumor hasn't grown at all.
Wow.
My neurosurgeon is completely on board with everything that I do.
Very good. Wow.
Yes.
But I asked.
Thank you. My plan's to keep it that way for a long time.
So, Kristy, you've gone from cell biologist to operating your own vegan business. What was the inspiration to start your own company?
I think I always knew that I wanted to have a restaurant. Like, even before I went vegan, somewhere in the back of my mind, must be the crazy part at the back.
That's really crazy, because I hate preparing food.
I think it's because I grew up cooking alongside my grandmother for many years, who owned her own catering company. So I was always a big part of that business, and I was always exposed to food preparation and large batch cooking. Interestingly, at the time that I was diagnosed with my brain tumor, with a short kind of prognosis, but with the possibility of being able to live longer, I knew I couldn't retire from my job, but I also knew I didn't want to work until the day I died.
Yeah.
So I needed to find some way to earn income that would bring me joy, something that I could contribute and leave like a beautiful legacy.
I love it.
That is lovely. Okay, the time has come to show who's the gourmet in the room and who is the gourmand. So,
You both said that mushroom soup is your favorite soup. So we've got 2 bowls here of my miso mushroom soup. So it's a completely whole foods, plant-based, dairy-free cream of mushroom soup. Everybody loves it. It's our number 2 seller next to our curried butternut squash soup. And I also brought along one of my strata jars. I named these after the layers of the earth because they're salads that I build in layers. So they all have a vegan protein at the bottom that's marinating in a house-made dressing, layers and layers of chopped veggies, a layer of gluten-free whole grains, some greens, and it's always topped with a salad topper. So while you are trying your soup, I'm going to make you a quick wrap, salad wrap.
it used to make me laugh when Alec was co-hosting and someone brought food, because things would always get real quiet over there on the couch. He'd
I resemble that remark.
yeah.
So this is really weird
you.
for me to be eating. I'm usually the one feeding, and I don't even eat my own food, when I'm catering. So
I
feel very honored and
Wonderful.
Here I am blowing on it, and we already talked about how you were going to serve it cold.
Yeah, actually, a lot of our soups, because they don't have a lot of oil or different things, they taste good hot
God,
and
it's
cold.
so good.
So what's in this?
So the miso mushroom soup has 4 different varieties of mushroom: white, cremini, portobello, and shiitake. And then to make it creamy, I use one of my grandma's little tricks, which is some potato, and I do a sunflower seed cream.
Nice.
So outside of that, just some spices, some miso paste.
Your motto is more taste, less waste, plant-based. So tell us about the ethos of Apothecary.
In addition to becoming vegan and part of the vegan movement, I also joined the zero waste movement and was a zero waster for a few years, really trying to go plastic free. And so I wanted to ensure that my business was plastic free as much as possible. It's not possible to be 100% plastic free, but all of my packaging that we use is Bernard and Mason jars, canning jars. And we actually buy the jars back from our customers to make sure that they have an incentive.
Yeah, and it's not like 5 cents.
To bring them
you
back.
give
I give $1
no, that's
back.
a lot. I'd bring back a jar for $1.
10 times more than the beer store pays for their empties.
You had to put it in relative terms for me, right? So now I know that love is an ingredient in all of your concoctions, but what else in there makes them so special? And also, what won't we find in your food?
Yeah, I think really what makes them special is what you don't find, because you don't find any animal products. There's no dairy, no eggs, no cholesterol, absolutely no preservatives. And I'm insane right down to the water that we use. So I actually use a Berkey water filter that removes over 200 pollutants from the water. So it removes pesticide residues, it removes pharmaceutical compounds from water, microplastics, heavy metals. The bottom chamber of my Berkey remineralizes and alkalizes the water. So in addition to having all of the micronutrients from the vegetables that are helping to neutralize oxidative stress in our bodies and any inflammation that's going on, we even have this alkaline water that's adding an extra layer, neutralizing any acidity or stress in the body.
Good grief.
What other items can we find on your Meals That Heal menu?
Yeah, you're not just the soup lady.
No.
We also have a number of stews. I would say probably the most popular is my leek and lentil stew that's topped with kale stamppot, which I'm Dutch, so stamppot is when you stump different vegetables through your pot of mashed potatoes, and we top that off with some kale mash, if you will.
Yum.
It's really delicious.
Yeah.
Of course, we have all of our strata jars, and we make beautiful salads, and you can see how quick it is to turn a salad into a wrap.
That would take me an hour. I gotta be honest.
Some of the vegans that I connected with were the Indian rock vegans, Dan and Cheyenne
You
Wallace
have in common the health.
Yeah, Sean has this amazing cinnamon bun recipe, and although it's not completely sugar-free and it's not whole foods, I added it to my menu as part of our mental health collection. And we call them the healthier cinnamon bun.
Yeah, nice, nice.
Even though you're a small company, you still generously give back to your community by supporting others.
Yeah, near and dear to my heart is food insecurity, and so we unfortunately have a pretty significant population of houseless folks in Hamilton. We try as often as possible, if we have any leftover food, to make sure that that's reaching our homeless community, or sometimes we make pots of soup specifically to donate to a certain shelter. We participate in various functions and events like Soup Fest, which also support houseless youth and various charities.
Oh, that's really sweet.
In October, we'll be doing, of course, a fundraiser for the Canadian Brain Tumor Foundation. I can't forget them. They've done so much for me as well. So,
right. Yeah.
Since your soups and stews aren't full of preservatives and other nasty ingredients, how should customers store them?
Everything is hot packed. I actually love doing this because I feel like I work for Dairy Queen whenever I do this. But they are fully sealed into their jars. So
it's a good thing that went well, right?
Keep them in the fridge sealed, and typically a hot packed soup will last 2 to 3 months, although they can last up to 9 months. And I very recently...
Oh, they never last that long in our place.
Right? It's hard to keep them that long. But I actually did lose one at the back of my fridge for about 6 months, and I recently opened it and ate it, and it was absolutely fine. So hot packed foods can just live in your fridge. The salads will last 7 to 10 days in the fridge. I kind of have perfected that over the years, how to layer things so that they stay fresh longer. So
very good. So I'm very glad you didn't turn into the soup Nazi like on Seinfeld and snatch my bowl away from me. Huh?
Very good. Very good. You know something? No soup for you!
No soup for you, Susan.
Come back 1 year!
Where can people visit you to indulge in more of your delicious food?
Absolutely. So our primary location right now is at the Hamilton Farmers Market, nearing maybe the point that we'll have our own bricks and mortar before too long. So I would say definitely check on Google for Apothecary Kitchen. You can find us on Instagram at Heal with Plants Canada, and my activism stuff, it's eats.plant.based.
Last question. I know it's like asking a parent to pick their favorite child, but what's your favorite item that you make?
Gosh, it is hard.
We won't tell the others.
I would say my roasted eggplant and tomato soup is probably my favorite. It's got a Moroccan spice blend in it that's a bit spicy called ras el
Kind of
hanout.
like you.
Kind
You
of
a little
like
bit
me, a little
spicy.
spicy. And then I puree raisins into the base so that you get this spicy sweet contrast.
Yummy.
That's probably my personal fave.
And I'll cover Mushroom Mizo's ears here so he doesn't hear all this.
There's a lot of other ones that I'm like, oh, I forgot how good this one was. Oh, I forgot how good this one was.
You're
The
fickle.
miso mushroom actually is really, I don't know how you're enjoying it, but it's really
delicious.
popular, really good, and people like it because you can make like a quick mushroom risotto out of it, or
that's smart.
cook some pasta in there and make a super quick mushroom stroganoff.
Yes.
So,
Thank you so much for
My
sitting
pleasure.
down with us.
thank you for having me.
Can't wait to gobble this down. I don't want to be like on the camera.
All right. Yeah, I just went for it. Anyway, thank you for coming to our taping, and more in the future. And that's it. That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
Yes. Oh yeah. And now we're gonna eat it.
We'll let everyone all share.
Yeah, absolutely.